Hey y'all, before today's episode, we wanted to let you know that Thicc Radio has been nominated for this year's Inner Star Trailblazer Awards in the media category.
We are finalists. This is a huge honor. We're both so incredibly grateful for the nomination, which just goes to show that people around the world not only love the podcast, but want to recognize it too. But though this is an incredible opportunity, we officially need your help.
Now listen, public voting is open now. It has been open and it will be open until Sunday, the 24th of August. So we are asking all of y'all to please go and vote for us. We have included the link in the show notes.
You only get one vote per email, so cast it wisely. Winners will be announced on Saturday, the 18th of October.
Now that might seem far away, but the panel will want to vote fairly on a winner, and you can help us by engaging with us. Like and comment on our social media posts, rate and review the podcast, share the episodes with people, you know the gist.
We also wanted to take this opportunity to say a great big thank you. It's your dedicated listenership that inspires us to do what we do, so this award isn't just for me and James, it's for all of us.
So pause this, go vote, then come on back and enjoy another week here on the podcast. Thanks for taking the time to listen, y'all.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the award-winning podcast where we talk about gaining, fetishism, and everything plus size. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're welcoming to the show for the first time, we've got Ray.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, my love. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, doing good here, hon. Doing good. Listen, learning to live with the heat, the warmth that is this very humid country, but you know, soldiering on.
Oh, I'm so jealous of some heat. It's so cold here.
We got a little bit of a break from the heat where I am. It's still humid, but at least the temperature has gone down.
Yo, those houses in the UK are really not built for heat, eh?
No, ma'am. No, it's look, it's very on trend. Everyone's talking about like the Americans who are eating their words when they come to the UK and they experience summer here. Like I get that, but like it's very, very simple and straightforward, y'all. Yes, you are correct. The temperature dial does not go as hot here as it does do in some places in the world. However, this is an island, therefore she's humid. Humidity already bumps the experience of temperature by 7 degrees. This is scientifically proven. Also, because this is a historically cold climate, everything is built to keep the heat in. There is nowhere with inbuilt air conditioning. So you are sat in the mug, in the hot and the warm, and all the fan does is push that hot, wet air all around the room. There is no reprieve, there is only suffering.
That's definitely what got me.
Would it be the same way if you were on the coast? Because I have to imagine that there is a windward side to the island, so...
Yeah, sure, but the problem is, my love, like, this is, assuming, I think it's called Dogger's Land, is the name of what would have been the land bridge that originally connected the British Isles to the European continent. If that existed, all of that oceanic wet would migrate over the European continent more thoroughly. But because there is the channel, it doesn't go that far over mainland Europe. It comes over the UK and it just sits. So sure, like you might get some amount of, if you are outside and get the cool breeze, absolutely. But just the general thing of sitting in your home, that humidity, that mugginess is not going anywhere.
That's definitely what got me, was the heat inside of the houses. There's no way to cool down.
There's no way to cool down. But you know what, my love? I think you are the perfect person to talk to about this today because I think it's high time we did this. I think we need to talk about what we do as fetishists to survive the world that we live in. And look, let's be frank, global warming, general heat is one of such factors that us big-bodied gals need to be more considerate of. So listen, Ray, my love, let's get into the chat. For people who aren't aware of you, do you mind sharing with us a snapshot of your body journey that you've been on through life?
Sure. I am Ray, or also known as Lil Daddy Muffins. I'm 28 years old, and I have been fat always. Pretty much always. I think maybe like 9 or 10 years old, I started getting fat, and I've always been fat. So if there's anyone who knows how to live with a fat body, it's definitely me. And I've definitely experienced a lot of concerns with regard to skincare, with regard to clothing and stuff that I've had to figure out along the way. And I'd be happy to just share some of that knowledge.
Well, listen, first and foremost, thank you for that. Something that I don't know that we often get the chance to talk about too terribly much with the podcast is the realities of having grown up fat. Because most people within the community as it is grow up as skinny people who want to become fat, they go on that journey, they achieve it, brilliant, great. You yourself are not a gainer, right?
No.
No, but you're still gorgeously fat, if I might say so. I'm just gorgeous, stunning. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
And listen, when we do the socials at the end, you all should go and give Ray a bit of a look-see on the profile because Ray is stunning, and must be gazed upon gorgeously. But you know, as we're saying, we don't often take time, I think, to speak to people who have the extensive lived experience of being fat, because many of us, we come across these intersections with our weight gain journey as we find them. We've never lived as fat people, and so the first time we see a skin tag, we go, oh, I've never seen these before, I've never encountered this. I suppose that's just what happens, and then it's a shrug, and then we move on. There's no societal, and I say societal, the community, but there's no societal conversation around like, oh, you're experiencing a lot of changes to how your body looks and reacts to things, how you might need to care for your larger body. And I don't know how much of that is people who might have a particular fascination for ruination kink. We're not here to judge that. But for many of us, it just comes down to we don't see that exampled in the world. There's no mainstream conversation around like big boys who want to look pretty and feel pretty, how they might endeavor to do so. And you've been sharing with us in private conversations in the past, but you're relatively knowledgeable for yourself at least. Would you say so?
I'd say so, yeah. I think I've also spent a ridiculous amount of money on skincare. So I've definitely tried a lot of stuff that I can tell you whether or not it works or not. I am lucky though. I do have pretty cool skin that I can throw anything at and it will bounce back. So for the more sensitive folks, obviously take my advice lightly.
Yeah, I wish that I had that kind of skin. If I change one thing in my routine, I tend to break out. And even over 40, I'm like, I'm over 40 years old. Why do I still get breakouts?
The worst. It's the worst. But also, even just people with drier skin, I think that like using too many active ingredients can be detrimental.
Tim, I would be curious, like as a mixed race black man, is there a conversation in darker skin communities around like products having like a different efficacy depending on the melanation?
Not that anyone ever told me, and not that I'm aware of medically. I'm gonna make a broad assumption here that like skin type is regardless of ethnicity or race. So like oily, dry, all that stuff, like that's all gonna happen anyway. So like I mean, there are certainly products that have been aimed at various groups of people for different reasons, but yeah, I don't think that there's some kind of secret that I haven't been let in on.
I think that the products that you're saying are marketed more towards people of color is the same thing as like the vitamins for men, vitamins for women. It's the same stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I
just in
mean,
a
there's always
different
going to
package.
be like marketing is always going to target one group for whatever reason because they think this product will move well among that group of people, and
Mm,
sometimes successfully, sometimes utter failure.
100%.
I ask as a curiosity only because as a ginger, and it's one of the few things that actually I would put my hand up and say, as a ginger, we dry out more easily, we overheat more easily. So I suppose like that's the only real question I have in regards to skincare stuff. Otherwise, as far as I'm aware, it functions much the same as anything else would.
I know that Matt can get a sunburn on an overcast day when it's raining.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. And you know, before we get into the products, I do want to ask, with a hope, do you have recommendations in terms of sunscreen, perhaps?
Everyday sunscreen, always sunscreen as much as you can. Obviously, mineral sunscreens are the best, but they are also the most expensive. But any sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. Even the cheapest girl you can find. Try and find something that goes for your skin type. There's lots of different kinds of sunscreen now. There's for dry skin, there's for oily skin.
Yeah,
It doesn't
that's my
have
biggest
to.
problem. I stopped doing a daily moisturizer and a daily sunscreen because I don't know, maybe I was getting the wrong ones and I was breaking out again. And I'm like, every time I try to introduce moisture or sun protection to my face, it freaks out. So, like, if you've got like a recommendation for I don't even know. I guess my skin type is oily, but like, I don't wear sunscreen for the reason that I don't want to break out.
Oh, okay. I also have quite oily skin, and I use the Eucerin for oily skin. It says it's for oily skin. It's really lovely. It's very light. You don't feel it like sitting on your skin like the other stuff. Doesn't make you look like greasy.
Especially those spray-on ones that everybody got
Yeah,
for.
those are terrible.
Those were so popular.
Mm,
Everyone's like, "Oh, I don't even have to put any effort in."
Yeah, but then it just sits
mm.
on your skin like canola oil. It's so gross.
Girl, my dad used to be very insistent on taking us kids to the beach, and he loved a zinc-based sunscreen, but it wasn't sunscreen.
Zinc.
It was just a zinc stick, but it was
Yeah.
so thick, it was like a clay, and he would wipe it on you, and okay, it sounds gross, but this is just the tea. You know when you first like hawk out like a big wad of peanut butter? And you go to spread it on toast and it don't fucking spread proper. That was the fucking zinc stick.
Yeah.
It felt uncomfortable.
We actually in the medical field we still use zinc oxide
Mm.
sparingly, but like there are still some situations where we use it, and I was like, God, we used to use
Well,
this as sunscreen.
the cricket players also still use it. They put it like over their noses specifically because their noses burn a lot.
Right.
But that's still better than not wearing any sunscreen.
Yes. Yes, that's very fair. So I think first point of the episode is sunscreen. Very much a thumbs up. Very much we would like to encourage people to do the thing. And before we get into, I suppose, any other particular products, I would like to ask you here because again, as you say, you've been fat for most of your life. You've experimented with a lot of different products. You know what works for you and what doesn't. I would be curious, what are the trends that you see happening when it comes to products for fat people? And of those kinds of trends, do you know if some of them are any good, or are they basically all a scam?
So, a pretty big trend that I saw going around on TikTok is the use of chlorhexidine gluconate or degluconate. There's two of them, two different ones, but I think they both do the same thing. And using that to keep yourself from stinking if you're a bigger person, where they apply that to, your crevices and stand for 5 minutes in the shower and then rinse it off and continue to shower normally for 2 weeks. If you do that, you're apparently supposed to stop stinking. I did not experience that I completely stopped stinking, but it definitely does like extend it. Like you don't like 3 hours after the shower, you're not stinking already. Like you can make it last a bit longer, which is really nice.
And you said that was called, generally speaking, chlorhexidine.
So we in South Africa call it bioscrub. I believe in the US it's called Hibiclens.
Yeah, Hibiclens.
And then in the UK, I saw it on Amazon, something called Sea Scrub. Sea,
Oh, yes,
like
yes.
but sea scrub. And those ones are, I believe, around like $8 to $10, and they last long. They last very long, especially if you use it with like a loofah or a washcloth. Loofahs and washcloths are so important. They stretch your product so much
Mm.
further.
Oh, yeah. Like, you don't need to be putting giant fistfuls of all sorts in order to make it go to where it needs to go to. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'd like to say this as a white person. I'm talking to you, white listeners, because I keep seeing this fucking conversation on TikTok and I'm grossed out. You need to use scrubbers on your motherfucking legs. You need to do that.
You need to use them in general. The
You mean there are
amount of
people that don't?
people, no, the amount of people that literally just like quick
The
puts a crotch,
pits
uh,
and bits, and then, oh, but the
crack.
soap runs down me. And so
Yeah.
therefore it goes in those places, and that is somehow good enough.
Well, do you think
And
do you think that that came out of that whole, because there was a slight, like, small movement where people wanted to shower like every other day and they only wanted to like focus on the like areas
no.
that actually produce odor and that
I
like they were trying to preserve skin integrity?
Listen, I don't know about that. Growing up in Australia, I was always caught between the whole like there was never not an advert on television about we're in a drought, we're on water restrictions, don't take long showers, righty right. Like, so I get it. There's one message that says don't shower as much as you think you might need to because we're trying to save water and not die. But then also, teenage boy, bleh, fucking clean that shit. Jesus Christ, stop telling like teenagers going through puberty to not shower as much. Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know about all that. All I know is I have my washcloth that I use, and like it touches every part of the external of me. It does. It goes everywhere from crown of hair to tippy toes, and she
Wait, your
gets
face
replaced.
too?
Yeah, I use a
Okay.
flannel on my face. I will
Yeah,
do the face.
you're not the same one that you wash your body with, right?
So it is the same one, but it's the face first. It's fine.
Okay.
Face
I was
first.
about to say, baby, you can't wash something with your face, you just wash your
No.
ass with.
No, yeah, no. I start with my ass and then I do my face. That's how I like to do things. No, my love, no. There is a firm logic in the preceding parts of my body that receive certain care and attention. And then once the shower is done, she goes in the washing machine. I pull out a fresh one for the next. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
very, very that. But anyways, I wanted to take a moment to just be like, because people are rinsing the white people on TikTok and the white people who are confessing to being like, I don't scrub my legs, I don't do my butt properly.
It's
This is why the other.
real. I've even seen like there are guys who say that they won't wash their asses because it's gay. I don't understand why there's this like tie of femininity to hygiene. It's not girly to be clean.
I don't understand how they find women willing to sleep with them. That's the part that always gets
Go,
me.
I don't know.
go.
God
I
bless.
don't understand it. I don't get it.
No.
Like, I have a weakness for a certain type of man. There is a certain type of man I'm willing to admit. Let's say a sort of robust, rugged, sort of man from a house that has wheels on it that I've always been kind of attracted to. But if his hygiene is atrocious, then no, 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 no.
It's the aesthetic. It's not the
Yeah, yeah,
practice.
Yeah.
yeah. And also, let us be very clear about this, right? If you are someone who, once again, if you have a sexual preference that you specifically enjoy, like, smelling, if you specifically enjoy, and, like, that is part of your kink, baby, we're not here to shame that. However, I bet my bottom dollar you've got to go out in the world at some point to get your groceries. Miss Thing at the counter and the checkout might appreciate it if you put a little
Yeah.
deodorant on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we talk about this all the time. Like, people get real defensive around, like, oh, but I like the musk. Baby, musk is not stank.
I like it
Musk,
too. I love it just as
musk,
much as the next pit pig,
but
but like
musk
it's
is pheromones. It's an allure. We are talking about, like, the detritus of your body, which is a
Mm.
decomposing materia.
It's the bacteria that's
what it boils down to for me is like other people don't should not have to be forced to be subjected to certain things if they don't want to. So like if they don't want to have to experience that, they shouldn't be forced to just so that you're comfortable. You know, there are
mm,
certain social contracts we have to make in public. It's
yeah, they don't have the opportunity to consent to that. It's
yes.
not fair.
Bathing and hygiene. That I feel like that's going to be my big contribution to this episode. Like, and I've said this before, you're like many of us who again started off skinny will identify with this. There is a real like joy and a delight when you are naked in the shower, you are soaping yourself up, you are feeling your body. You can feel that there are ridges, rolls and folds, peaks and valleys that were not there before. That is a delight to discover. That is a way to love on your gainer body, especially if you aren't seeing the scales move. But therein also comes the point of now there are new peaks and valleys. There are new rolls and folds and places within which sweat and dead skin and detritus will gather. We got to get intimate with our bodies, get familiar with these new crevices, and make sure all that product, all that soap actively gets in and amongst. to clean it. And when it comes to taking care of ourselves, being aware when we're slipping into, I suppose here we're talking about, I guess, physical health, like hygiene would be a part of that physical health, but, mental hygiene as well, right? Like checking in with oneself and making sure that we're fully abreast of what's happening with ourselves, that we're feeling comfortable with it. But thinking more on the physical hygiene side, something I've gotten into recently is using a salicylene cream. And I do that because, and I forget what it's called, it's basically little bumps on the skin where little hairs get trapped, but it's not bad. It just sort of like happens to patches of skin if you wear like socks that are rolled up and it creates a friction, or if you wear like long skinny trousers, you get a lot of that.
Yeah, you also get them forming like a lot on your shoulders. For some reason, they tend to form there. They're just buildups of sebaceous filaments. I believe the technical term is keratosis pilaris, and the salicylic acid will really help for that. I'm so sure, especially if you're exfoliating with a physical exfoliant like a washcloth or a loofah or something. If you combine those, it'll go away. It worked for me. It worked for Tabby.
Are there any other products? Like I feel like there are things you hear about what is it, like a glycolic acid? Like are there any other things like that that you might recommend?
So speaking of trends, and a trend that does work is if you're experiencing a lot of acne. If you get glycolic acid, there are different versions of it, but they're all the same thing. Just try and make sure. I think it's like 7% or something like that. It's a pretty solid one. And you put that in like a spray bottle, and you spray that all over your back morning and night for a while. The acne will go away. It will clear it up for you.
I would recommend getting yourself either a foot spa, a pet egg, some kind of I know that at least over here in the US there's been an infomercial for some ridiculous looking thing that you can put in the shower to scrub your foot with. I would invest in something like that, because the more we gain weight, the more it is going to interfere with our circulation a bit, and that is going to affect our feet because they are the furthest away from our heart. So you have to be aware of what's going on with your feet, getting your toenails regularly clipped. If you can't do it yourself anymore, please schedule yourself a pedicure every 2 weeks. It's really not that expensive. Look into possibly seeing a podiatrist if that's not an option for you. And just look at your feet. When you look at them, wash them, look in between your toes. Like, make sure that there's no sores there, because a little cut on your foot unattended to can become a big problem.
Especially with the calluses, that they can also grow thick and crack, and those can get really nasty if they get infected. It's really important to try and keep those under control.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will always scrub the hell out of my feet in the shower. I will always use a moisturizer on them afterwards, even just cocoa butter, bitch. Just a little something to add a bit of moisture back into that skin. And we've said this before. It might sound a bit counterintuitive, but I'd love to see some like gainer events where it's like we've booked out the fucking mani pedi salon for a Saturday morning. Take you and
That would
10
be
friends
so
down there.
cute.
Go. Can we just all the big
Oh,
boys
I
like
would
sat
love
in the
that. I would
chairs?
love just leading like a self-care routine
Why hasn't
moment.
anybody thought of that before? No one's hosted a Grommr that included a spa day, or at least a trip to the nail salon.
Girl, and
That
actually
sounds so lovely.
a fatty spa day. Get the piggies done in the morning. You can go out for a little brunch after that, and then we can go on down to the spa. Maybe there's things where it's like, oh, maybe there's like massage things on offer. But girlie, even if it's just like everyone puts on like a fluffy white robe and there's a communal pool, I'll sit there and read my motherfucking book for 6 to 12 days. I would be very chuffed with that.
Be very cute. Back on the note of the feet with the calluses, there are foot masks that you can do now that have like a strong concentration of salicylic acid also in it, and I think other AHAs and BHAs, but that stuff really works. Oh my God, like it peels all of the dead skin off of your feet within like a week or two. You'll have like brand new feet. It's crazy.
Are there any other products that you might recommend, or even any like personal faves that you're like,
Like I said to you, I did want to gatekeep it, but while we're here, my favorite for taking care of like blackheads and tightening my skin and making sure it's really like smooth and there's no texture build up. The one thing that's really like changed my life has been the Korean skincare, the Medicube Zero Pore pads. You use them once a day. There's 70 pads in a holder, and they have changed my skin texture completely. The way I'm sitting here looking at this light, looking for texture that I can't find.
There's the thought of, oh, are you using that like touch up filter? But you can see from like the texture of the background of your lived space that like no, like this is just your skin looking smooth and delicious. So
That stuff really changed my life. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's about $20 in the US, or $18-20 in the US, which I don't think is bad for it. It's 25 in the UK, which I think is a little rough for it. It is a million rand here.
I've also started using carbolic soap recently,
Oh.
which I don't know if they still sell that in drugstores or not. We have to order it online, but it's like some of the oldest soap on the market. Like if you've ever heard of Lifebuoy, it's like that was carbolic soap, and like Marilyn Monroe used it, and all these famous people apparently loved it. So it smells horrible. You have to get past the smell. But it doesn't strip away as much oil and moisture from your skin. So it just like sort of gently cleanses away the bacteria, and you don't feel, because I have hard water. I live in the city. I don't have a water softener. I'm getting hit with all that magnesium and calcium and rust and lime and God only knows what else. So that like switching to the carbolic soap has helped in like not feeling so dry after I get out of the shower.
I mean, also not to knock the people who have very serious skincare concerns and stuff like that. I
oh,
mean, I
absolutely.
do. Some people do really struggle with it, and there's really not a lot they can do about it, which is terrible. But I think speaking more about it will also contribute to those people being able to find better products for them, and there being a larger conversation going on around it.
Of course, you might try some of these. They may work for you, they may not work for you, because of course every body is different, which means everyone's skin is different. But if you've got recommendations of your own that you think have worked for you, that you think it would be good to recommend to the other biggins, let us know. Reach out to us at thiccradio@gmail.com. Message us on social media. Give us your recs, links to things, please. Anything that we can use to collate and offer up to people as a point of reference, I think would be really, really good. There's one other thing I was curious to ask about. You had mentioned this in one of our previous conversations, something called hydrogenitis, and that's something to do with cysts, correct?
So it's hydradenitis with a D, and it's something that I've experienced, and it's not very fun. But the chub rub that you'll get, it causes a lot of friction down there. That friction causes ingrown hairs, ingrows the hairs, cause some cysts. And some people just are predisposed to it, but sometimes those cysts will form little tunnels to each other and be connected to each other and be incredibly hard to keep under control. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. But using that chlorhexidine gluconate soap to keep it clean, to really exfoliate it, using salicylic acid even made a big difference. And then the chlorhexidine gluconate did the ultimate difference. It's under control now. So that's from my experience. You just have to really exfoliate there, use the active exfoliants to keep it clean, the antibacterial stuff, and then it will be more manageable. But it's not fun, and if you can prevent it, it's always better.
And on that note of friction and chub rub, I think, it would be worth mentioning here as well about things like clothing. So I think sometimes as well, we love to purchase some form-fitting clothes based on how it makes us look larger, and we want to feel the fantasy of like ripping out of things. And again, this is not to knock that, but certainly in terms of like everyday wear, shall we say, would you recommend that people maybe go the size up, something that fits, I suppose, a little bit more?
I would, because the other thing is you guys are gaining, and if you gain, at some point you're going to get to a point where none of your clothes want to fit you, and then you are going to be sad because you cannot go out because you do not have clothes. So try and keep at least something that's not too tight for general wear. Tighter things are also going to become bothersome eventually. I really hate the feeling of like a tight shirt on me. It makes me feel like I'm gonna explode. Hate that. And then, well, also, something that on the note of the chub rub and on the note of the clothing, something that happens to me often is because of the chub rub. If I swim in the sea, it creates like a massive rash where it's rubbing, and then it's so tough to walk because of the rash that's formed there. And lots of people have said things like you can use powder or you can use some lotion or something. None of that's ever worked for me. My biggest recommendation is getting like a pair of tights or a pair of ski pants to wear under your board shorts, or just like that even, and to go swimming in that. I don't know if maybe swimming in a Speedo is also better, but I've never been like out at the beach in a Speedo. That's not really the culture here.
And once again, we're asking everyone for their recommendations. We actually, on our website now, have a page for recommended links and directories. We have links for Black-owned businesses and for queer-owned businesses. But believe it or not, there is no directory for fat-owned businesses or fat-specific businesses. So if you have recommendations, please send them to us at thiccradio@gmail.com. Send them to us through social media. We would love to create a spreadsheet that we could actually have out there as something that people could download and reference and say, this is where you could buy specifically swimwear, specifically bras and panties. You know, you could buy people who create shoes that are more wide fit, which also happens as you gain weight, insoles for shoes. Please, you know, shoes are not all built the same. They are not necessarily always built for big boys. They don't always have moisture wicking. They don't always breathe so easily. Maybe they have they look wide on the exterior, but they've got a lot of padding on the inside, so actually it crushes your feet a little bit. So all sorts of little bits and pieces to be conscious of.
Look at 0.5 sizes. It's very, very good. Or you guys do the 42, 43, 44, those things. I mean, in the US sizes, you must look at half sizes.
In the US, it's mostly, I mean, you can find odd sizes, but it's a little difficult. They don't make a whole lot of them. So it's mostly even. So from 30 all the way to 40, and then in 2-inch increments.
I have no idea what those sizes and shoes mean.
But that just means for listeners, no matter where you are, get familiar with the clothing sizes and get familiar with what approximations make sense for you and for brands available to you. I think one final point, just in terms of products and purchasing in themselves, I think something a lot of people often come back with is the notion, and I don't know that it's unfounded, that a lot of these products tend to be expensive. And I think it's wonderful. You've said previously that some of these other products, you can find them at your local for, what, $8 to $10 in some instances. I think you said those Europol pads are closer to $20, $25 in others. But just in terms of being more fiscally responsible for those of us that don't have a lot of excess expenditure, do you have any recommendations for how one might identify suitable products that are home brand but may give the same result?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you have to spend a lot of money on it. I think that there are lots of ways of getting around that, especially for instance, in terms of lotion and moisturizer. Don't buy the expensive stuff there. It does the same thing as the cheaper stuff. It's just gonna moisturize you. The $2 bottle of hyaluronic acid is just as good as the $10 bottle of hyaluronic acid. If you can't find products that you feel like are within your price range with the active ingredients in that you're looking for, like salicylic acid or glycolic acid or whatever, you can look for the drops of the active ingredients. Just add some drops of that to your normal body wash or your normal face wash, and that will help already. Any SPF is better than no SPF. But if you can, try and go for something a little bit more on the expensive side. It doesn't have to be the La Roche-Posay thing. Those things are crazy expensive, but you get dermatological SPF brands that are just a little bit above an average price, I'd say. And then yeah, the Medicube is the most expensive thing I'd recommend. But that, like I said, it does come with 70 pads, so it is a 2-month supply. So I justify it like that.
I will say as a quick thing, there was a recent expose in Australia about sunscreen, because of course, huge proponent in Australia, sunscreen. And there was an investigation done around a lot of the leading sunscreen skincare brands, finding that most, I think upwards of 85% of brands that advertised SPFs of 50 plus only hit a rough SPF of 27. So La Roche, funny you should mention, tends to have an average SPF of around 70. So depending on where you live and depending on what your skin is like, it may be worth purchasing the more expensive. But like what our friend was saying, it's very important that we're considerate of, like, is this worth it with what we're doing and how we're doing it? Do you work a job in the sun? Are you driving everywhere every single day? Do you live in Australia where the ozone is thinner? And therefore, this is a more important factor for you to consider in your generalized skincare. Ask yourself, I think, some more like appropriate questions about your personal lived experience and skincare needs versus the idea of simply purchasing something that's more expensive or has a label attached to it. But I will say, within all this conversation, and I would love to dig a little more into your experiences here, because as you say, you've grown up as a larger person, and I can assume, due to systemic fat phobia, that your experiences as a larger person have not always been positive. And, I think a lot of these conversations, as we're sort of talking around about, have something to do with like that societal shame. Boys shouldn't be using products because it's a girly thing to do, and boys are sort of meant to be a little bit gross, and then there's no like caveat to that. I'd be curious to explore for you, how have you come to approach and resolve all of that tension for yourself?
I mean, I think society is very weird. It's very strange. I think people are very strange with the things that they think are important and are not important. I was really lucky to have a really cool mom and no dad. And she taught me about skincare. We were doing facials and stuff when I was like 13, 14 still. We already started going for facials together, stuff like that. So it wasn't foreign to me that that hygiene and cleanliness and skincare is important, because I was surrounded by that growing up. I think a lot of people aren't exposed to that. And then I also think that there's a compounding factor of shame. I think a lot of people shame people for not knowing things that they would consider to be common knowledge, when these aren't necessarily things that everyone's families or everyone's environment is having conversations around, and they don't know what they don't know.
I feel like that phrase, you don't know what you don't know, is important. Because I think it applies across a lot of different verticals, especially as we find ourselves becoming more engaged in the political across so many different aspects of our world. I think more and more people are coming to realize that actually there is a great amount of not knowing when it comes to a great many things, really. And I think it's important to revisit that with this conversation. We're not having this to shame anyone who's into, again, the idea of smelling a certain type of way or maintaining your hygiene in a type of way, if that is what's correct for you. This isn't to shame that. But I also think it's worth noting that there are going to be people who lean into that, not because that's who they are and what they want to be, but because we don't see any other idea being modeled. And I think something else that's worth bringing up in relation to that, we touched a little bit on mental health before. And I'll just come out and say this, right? I am one of the types of people who, when my mental health is flagging, my personal hygiene does go down. And I say that with ownership, right? If I know that I am experiencing a depression or a high level of anxiety, I know that I'm not taking care of myself in the ways that I should. And in fact, a lot of those features that I was mentioning before, the ways in which people aren't scrubbing their bodies from head to toe and things like that, I tend to adopt those habits because that's part of my mental health beginning to wane. And I would be curious to ask, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, is this something that you yourself have experienced?
It definitely is. I get big sad often. And when I am big sad, it is hard to really take care of yourself properly. And it's hard to then go and do this whole self-care routine that you've built up for yourself. I also have definitely some kind of autism where I struggle with executive dysfunction in that I can't shower without doing the everything shower, but you can and should. Another thing that I think is a good idea is if you really feel like you can't, trying to just take care of your problem areas, maybe getting like an antibacterial wet wipe and just wiping areas that you know are prone to buildup or prone to infection. If that's something that you feel like you're more able to master, and maybe extend yourself to the next day and take care of yourself that day. If that's what you need to do to get through it, then do that.
How do you discern the need to prioritize your self-care? Like, is there something that you notice within yourself where you're like, oh, I need to treat myself a little more here? Like, how does that normally shape up for you?
I definitely start to feel gross. Like in if something is not being taken care of properly, I can feel it being gross. If my toenails are getting too long, I can feel them starting to curl. If my heels are getting cracked, I can feel them cracking. You can feel it. It's just about like what you allow yourself to ignore. Ignoring is I think the biggest problem because the longer you ignore stuff, the bigger of a problem they become. So try to tackle things early.
What about you, Tim? Do you ever feel that there's an aspect of your personal hygiene that takes a dip if you get too busy with work or if there are other things that happen for yourself?
I mean, not if I'm going to go out in public. If I know that I have to go out in public, then I will shower, I'll brush my teeth, I will put on clean clothing. I won't necessarily do my hair or try to make myself look cute. But on days where I know that I don't have anything to do, like if I have a significant amount of time off, yeah, and if I'm depressed, I could go maybe 2, 3 days without potentially showering. Always brushing my teeth. That's the one thing I can't let go of. That's just a personal thing. Yeah, that's the one thing that I wouldn't neglect. But I've been big sad before, and yeah, it's my biggest thing is when I'm that sad or going through that is not feeding myself either because I'm a stress starver. So like if I'm big sad, it could be 12 hours before I eat something.
Absolutely. Good recommendation, I would say, is finding frozen meals that you don't mind the taste of. Here in the UK, it's very easy to get your hand on a bag of meatballs and the sachets of gravy mix that they do at IKEA. I couldn't tell you the number of days where it's like, for whatever reason, I either forgot to eat because I still experience that, or the big sads and I don't eat. And I'm like, no, I don't want dinner. And now it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm starving and there's nothing that I can have easy, except I know I can whip this out, get it made in 15 minutes, throw it down my neck, and it's fine. I think finding little things you can do to sort of like, like break glass in case of emergency. It's very that, like finding things that you can kind of set up for yourself so that should such a situation arise, one has foods that you find with, that you can throw in and you can have a decent enough time with. And as far as it pertains to things like bathing, one of the things I like to use is an Epsom salt, which is very, very simple. But like, even if I can't be bothered, if I'm just like, maybe I'll just like sit in the water for a bit. Sit in the water for a bit. Some Epsom salts. It'll feel good.
Also great for achy muscles and stuff.
Now, we've talked around about this notion of, and I don't know if people have a term for it. I suppose I would call it like slobbishness, right? Like I would call it like a slob kink within the community. The things that we're kind of touching on where people seem to have a real desire for smelling a certain type of way and appearing a certain type of way. Like that kink does exist, and none of what today's discussion has been about saying that that is wrong or should be like banned or anything like that. But I would be curious, like as a person who's outside of gaming, how do you feel that a robust approach to self-care could potentially intersect with or challenge?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not here to yuck anyone's yum. I think the kids are calling it stink maxing nowadays. I personally, as someone who's not involved in any particular kink community, I'm just here. I am more attracted to cleanliness, to well-groomed people, but that's just a personal preference. I'm sure there's lots and lots of people who love some stinky girls.
Totally fair. I mean, I think it's a bit like you were saying before, Tim. It's good to be conscious of when we're in shared spaces. Not everyone's consenting, and maybe it'll be an idea to manage one's own levels, shall we
I mean, a
say?
good example that I can give you is when I go to Claw every year. Claw is a leather event, and it's just sort of understood in the leather community that natural scent is what is preferred. Most guys either want the scent of leather on them or they want the scent of another man on them. Colognes and perfumes are not really big in the community. So there is the understanding that if you go to one of those events, you're most likely going to smell other people's BO quite often because you're going to be walking past them. But it's like everyone who shows up to this event knows what's going on. So nobody really complains about it. And you can always walk away because it's also big event spaces, and it's not as if anyone's odor is permeating an entire event space, right? So if you really like, if you walk past someone and you're like, oh, they haven't showered in like 4 days, you can always go somewhere else. And it ends up working out. So, but yeah, like you were adding, it's again, people have consented to be at the event, so they're already aware of what's going to happen.
I think you were saying before, right? Implied consent, right? Like, what is the context of the situation and the environment that I'm in? Uh, Good things to be aware of. And being at a kink event is very different to going and getting your groceries. So, again, none of any pointedness in this is directed to kink spaces and safe spaces. It's only ever directed to how we operate in a world that we share with other people and must all of us together fit in and
Well,
amongst each other.
also, like, if you're going in for like a specific thing, like if you know you're going to go and have your crotch waxed, be clean. Be showered and clean. You can't walk in there and make those people put their face in your butthole if it stinks. No, man.
Yeah, 100%. And if we don't know, ask the question. But if it's not the right time, or if we've forgotten to ask the question, like, err on the side of caution and go, maybe I will just run myself under the shower. Maybe I will just make sure. I kind of imagine this for scat fetishists, right? Like, the girlies who do that are not unaware of how
Hmm.
that materia is going to make a majority of the population feel. So I don't think it's like, oh, we need to tell people that we're not into that. Like, sure, again, good to clarify, but like, we could probably operate from a very safe place of assumption that like they probably have a better sense that like this probably isn't going to fly. We should be aware of
Yeah,
how
I
this
can
goes
I
in
can
spaces.
I can tell you that they do know that because
Hmm.
again, the leather spaces, there are people who crossover is also like that's one of them, and they're very respectful, very
Yeah.
respectful.
Hmm.
They're proud of their kink as they should be,
Hmm.
as anyone should be of their kink. So they do flag certain colors and they do have certain, kind of funny comical accoutrement that they incorporate. But they're very respectful, and if you tell them, "I'm sorry, that's not my thing," they back off, because they
There you
know.
go.
They know.
And that's about all I think we could ask of any of our stink maxes slash slobbification peeps is the simple thing, respect in spaces. And I don't know that that's necessarily a problem, but for people who maybe feel a sort of base level hum or a melange of maybe I'm not doing the best to take care of myself, then maybe more of this episode content is for you. But I do want to ask you, Ray, as a way to round out the episode, we've talked about this slobbishness, and I do think it comes from a societal expectation for slobbishness from fat people in general, right? Do you feel like you've seen a shift in that trope over time?
I definitely do. I think that a lot of the public perception around big boys has changed. It's really become our time, I think. The boys are handsome. The boys know that they're handsome and they know that they're clean and they know that they're hot and fat. And I think there's a revolution coming and we should all be very excited about it. A revolution of hot, fat boys.
Goddamn, yes, absolutely. And as we begin to round out, my love, do you have any other final closing thoughts or points you'd like to bring up to the listeners today?
On the note of the fashion choices, if anyone finds anything in South Africa, that would be lovely. Let me know. It's big boy fashion is really quite a letdown, but I believe you guys have some more options. Fashion Nova and the Big and Tall and all of that. Here we can't really order anything. And otherwise, yeah, just take care of yourselves.
Absolutely. Ray, I want to say a massive thank you. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, where can our listeners find you online?
You can find me at Lil Daddy Muffins, LIL Daddy Muffins, on most socials, just not Twitter. I have Instagram, BlueSky, Tumblr, and the Grommr.
Fabulous. Well, that's a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, our guest, or just us in general, please share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BlueSky at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram at ThiccyMouse and Grommr at Orpheus. You can also look us up on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Thicc Radio, or at our website at podpage.com/Thicc Radio. If you want to become a financial supporter of the show, you can donate to our PayPal, and you can always write to us at thiccradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye,
Let's talk
Pat.
about it.
Thicc Radio is a Spotify podcast
Artwork, media design, editing, and production by James Heinzen.
with original theme music by CYMK.